Pause for a moment, because the way you found this message is not random. Something is shifting around you today, and you can feel it. Have you noticed how the air feels heavier, your thoughts feel sharper, and your spirit feels unusually alert? Today carries a strange kind of intensity, the kind that makes you stop and wonder why your heart feels one step ahead of your reality. That's because this final day energy of November isn't just a date crossing off the calendar. It's a spiritual signal, a sign that an old chapter is finishing, even if nothing in your life looks the same yet. You might be sensing distance from certain people. You might feel uninterested in old habits that once pulled you in. Or maybe you woke up with a quiet knowing that the version of you from yesterday doesn't fit anymore. If any of this sounds familiar, stay right here, because this shift is not small. In this video, we will talk about the 6 clear signs that God is closing an old cycle in your life and preparing you for a new one. And by the time you hear these signs, you'll understand exactly why today feels so spiritually charged. One of the clearest signs that God is closing an old cycle for you is when your priorities begin to shift almost overnight. Things you used to care about intensely start to feel less important, and activities that once consumed your time no longer hold the same pull. This change doesn't come from pressure or influence. It comes from an internal awareness that you have outgrown certain habits, mindsets, and even environments. You might notice this shift in simple ways. Maybe you're no longer interested in the same conversations, or you've lost the urge to entertain distractions that used to drain your focus. You could also feel a rising desire to protect your energy more than before, choosing peace over chaos and clarity over noise. This inner rearranging is a sign that you're being prepared for a new level of purpose. When God closes a cycle, He adjusts your heart first. That's why you suddenly feel pulled toward things that strengthen your spirit and away from things that limit your growth. Even if nothing around you changes instantly, the shift within you is the first step toward a new season. Trust this realignment. It means you're being guided into the path that matches who you're becoming. Another strong sign that an old cycle is ending is the quiet emotional distance that suddenly appears between you and the parts of your life that once affected you deeply. Situations, people, or memories that used to stir frustration, sadness, or anxiety now feel strangely neutral. It's not that you don't care, it's that you've healed to a point where those emotions no longer control your reactions. This emotional shift often shows up subtly. You may catch yourself responding calmly to a situation that once irritated you. You might notice that certain conflicts don't bother you the way they used to, or that someone's opinion holds far less weight in your mind. This isn't numbness, it's growth. God is removing the emotional hooks that kept you tied to old cycles, allowing you to step forward without carrying yesterday's weight. This detachment is a form of divine protection. It helps you see situations with clarity instead of emotion, making it easier to make decisions based on truth instead of fear. When you reach this state, it's a sign that you're ready to leave behind what no longer reflects your future. It means the past has lost its grip, and you're finally strong enough to walk into a new chapter with a clear heart. When God is closing an old cycle, He often removes the people who were tied to the version of you that no longer exists. This doesn't always happen through conflict. Sometimes it's quiet, conversations slow down, the bond feels different, or the relationship naturally loses its place in your daily life. You may not even understand why the distance is happening, but you can feel that it's necessary. These changes are rarely comfortable at first. Even if you knew the connection wasn't good for you, the shift can feel confusing. But this fading is a sign of protection, not loss. God is clearing the energy around you so you're not held back by voices that drain your strength or limit your growth. Instead of chasing connections, you start valuing the peace that comes from being around people who truly support your purpose. You'll notice that your body reacts differently too. Conversations that once felt normal now feel heavy. Old social circles no longer fit your spirit. Your intuition becomes louder, getting you away before anything can distract or delay your progress. This is God making room for relationships that match where you're heading, not where you've been. Trust the separation. It's preparing you for alignment, support, and healthier connections in your next season. Another sign that God is closing an old cycle is the sudden clarity that breaks through your mind like a light turning on in a dark room. You start recognizing what no longer aligns with your values, your direction, or your emotional well-being. This clarity doesn't come from overthinking. It arrives naturally, almost effortlessly, as if God is highlighting what needs to be released. You may notice it when you're making decisions. Things that were once confusing now feel obvious. Situations you used to tolerate suddenly feel wrong for you. Even long-term plans you once felt certain about might no longer match the person you're becoming. This clarity is a sign that your spirit is outgrowing patterns, habits, or even dreams that belonged to an older version of you. What makes this shift powerful is the peace that comes with it. Instead of doubting yourself, you start trusting your inner knowing. You stop forcing connections, forcing outcomes, or forcing yourself into spaces that don't reflect your worth. It becomes easier to say no, easier to set boundaries, and easier to acknowledge what has run its course. This kind of clarity is a blessing. It shows that God is revealing the truth so you can move forward without confusion or hesitation. It's His way of guiding your steps toward a chapter that matches your purpose more closely than ever before. A powerful sign that God is ending an old cycle is when certain opportunities stop working the way they used to. Plans fall through, doors shut unexpectedly, or something you were once excited about no longer moves forward. At first, this can feel frustrating, especially if you believed that path was meant for you. But these closures are not punishment, they're guidance. When God redirects you, He closes the route that would have held you back. You might notice that certain projects slow down, relationships shift, or routines that once felt natural now feel forced. This is often a gentle signal that growth is pulling you in a new direction. Even the things you've been waiting for may no longer feel right, because they belonged to who you were, not who you're becoming. You may also sense this through your emotions. Something that once excited you now feels dull. A plan you once chased now feels out of place. This loss of interest isn't a failure, it's alignment. It means God is preparing something more fitting, more stable, and more meaningful. These closed doors act as protection. They prevent you from settling for less and help you avoid paths that would drain your potential. Trust this shift, because every no in this season is clearing space for a much bigger yes ahead. When God is closing an old cycle, you often feel a sudden push to clean up different areas of your life, mentally, emotionally, or even physically. This urge doesn't always make logical sense. You might wake up wanting to declutter your space, remove old items, change your routines, or distance yourself from anything that feels heavy. This shift happens because your spirit is preparing for a new phase that requires more space, more clarity, and more peace. You may notice this in small moments. Maybe you're rearranging your room, deleting contacts you no longer resonate with, or letting go of old expectations you were carrying for too long. You might also feel drawn to tighten your boundaries, simplify your commitments, or finally deal with tasks you've been avoiding. These impulses are not random. They are spiritual signals guiding you toward a lighter version of yourself. This reorganization also shows up internally. You begin clearing emotional clutter by releasing old guilt, resentment, or worry. Your mind becomes more focused, and you stop wasting energy on things that don't benefit your growth. This shift is God's way of preparing you for a new chapter that requires fresh energy and a renewed sense of purpose. When you feel this urge to simplify, embrace it. It's a sign that your spirit is aligning with the future God is building for you. One of the most meaningful signs that God is closing an old cycle is the calm that settles in your heart after releasing something you once held tightly. Even if the situation was difficult or painful, you begin to feel lighter than you expected. This peace isn't forced, it arrives naturally, almost quietly, as if God is reassuring you that you've made the right step. You may notice this peace in moments where stress should have been present. Instead of overthinking, you feel steady. Instead of doubting your choices, you feel grounded. And instead of carrying emotional heaviness, you realize your spirit has room to breathe again. This is because when a cycle ends, God lifts the emotional burden that was tied to it. Sometimes the peace shows up in your sleep improving, your thoughts becoming clearer, or your heart no longer reacting to old triggers. Other times, you simply sense an inner freedom, a feeling that you're not being pulled backward anymore. This peace is confirmation. It's God telling you that what left your life was not meant to stay, and what's coming next will match your growth. When peace follows release, it means the transition is divinely supported, and you're stepping into a season that honors your healing, strength, and potential. As God closes an old cycle, your inner guidance becomes sharper. You start sensing things before they happen, not in a dramatic way, but in a calm, steady awareness that something needs attention. Your intuition feels louder, clearer, and harder to ignore. It becomes the quiet voice that nudges you when something is off, or pulls you back when you're about to step into situations that don't serve your growth. This can show up in simple moments. You might feel uneasy around certain people, even if nothing is said out loud. You may sense when a conversation is shifting in the wrong direction, or when an opportunity looks good on the surface, but doesn't feel right in your spirit. You'll also notice that you no longer second-guess these feelings, you trust them more because they've been proven right repeatedly. This heightened intuition is part of your spiritual realignment. God strengthens your inner awareness so you can walk into the next season with confidence instead of confusion. It helps you avoid mistakes, steer clear of emotional traps, and choose what truly aligns with your purpose. When your intuition rises like this, it's not random. It means you're being spiritually prepared, guided, and protected as you step out of the old and into the next phase of your journey. One of the strongest signs that God is closing an old cycle is when situations that once disturbed your peace no longer hold the same power. The comments that used to upset you now barely register. The patterns that once caused anxiety no longer shake your spirit. You respond with calmness, clarity, and strength, not because you're ignoring the problem, but because you've grown beyond it. This shift often catches you by surprise. You may notice it in a moment where someone tries to provoke you, and instead of reacting emotionally, you feel steady. Or a situation repeats itself, but you handle it with wisdom instead of frustration. This emotional maturity is a sign of healing, and it shows that God has been working on your inner world long before the external changes arrive. It's not numbness, it's transformation. Your heart is no longer tied to the pain of the past, and your mind isn't controlled by old wounds. Your reactions change because your spirit has leveled up. When old triggers lose their grip, it means you're stepping into a new season where your peace is stronger than your pressure. This is God showing you that you're ready for healthier experiences, clearer decisions, and a future that doesn't repeat the patterns you've already outgrown. When God is closing an old cycle, you often feel a quiet pull away from environments that once felt comfortable. It's not dramatic, it's subtle. You start noticing that certain routines feel heavier, certain places drain your energy, and certain patterns no longer match the person you're becoming. Even if nothing is wrong, you sense that you don't belong there anymore. This shift shows up in small ways. You may lose interest in spaces you used to visit often. You might feel restless when you try to repeat old habits. Even your favorite routines might start feeling outdated, as if your spirit is signaling that they've served their purpose and it's time to move forward. This pull is part of your spiritual evolution. As God prepares you for a new chapter, He makes the old chapter less appealing so you don't stay stuck in what was meant to be temporary. It's His way of guiding you without forcing you. You may not know exactly where you're heading next, but you can feel that staying where you are isn't the answer. This internal shift is preparing you to step into environments that inspire you instead of limiting you. It's a sign that your growth is leading. And your next season requires a higher level of energy, purpose, and alignment. A major sign that God is closing an old cycle is the moment you no longer feel pressure to explain your worth, defend your decisions, or seek validation from others. The need to impress people fades because your confidence is coming from a deeper place, your alignment with God, not the opinions around you. You may notice this when you choose silence instead of defending yourself, or when someone questions your path, and instead of feeling insecure, you feel steady within. You understand that your growth doesn't require approval, and your purpose doesn't need an audience to be real. This shift frees you from emotional exhaustion and helps you stay focused on what truly matters. This change also shows up internally. You stop comparing yourself to others because you recognize that your path is unique. You no longer chase recognition because your spirit feels complete without it. You begin to value peace over validation and authenticity over acceptance. When you reach this point, it's a sign that your identity is being rebuilt on a stronger foundation. God is removing the old insecurities that tied you to past cycles and preparing you to walk into the next season with confidence, clarity, and self-respect. This shift is proof that you're stepping into a higher version of yourself. Sometimes the strongest sign that God is closing an old cycle is the subtle feeling that a chapter has ended, even if nothing dramatic has happened. You might wake up with a strange inner certainty that you've reached the end of a phase. There's no sadness, no confusion, just a gentle knowing that you've received everything you were meant to learn from that season. This feeling can show up unexpectedly. You might look at a situation that once consumed your thoughts and realize you're no longer attached to it. You might revisit an old dream and sense it no longer belongs to your future. Or you may simply feel done without being able to explain why. This is not giving up, it's spiritual confirmation. This sense of completion is God's way of preparing you emotionally before the external shift happens. It helps you release gracefully instead of holding on tightly. It also protects your peace, so you don't stay stuck in places that have already served their purpose. When this quiet closure comes, it means your spirit is aligned with what's next. It's a sign that you're ready for new experiences, new opportunities, and a new level of growth, even if you don't see them yet. Trust that feeling. It's a divine signal that you're moving in the right direction. As God prepares to close an old cycle, your spirit often becomes restless. Not anxious, just unsettled in a way you can't fully describe. It's the feeling that you're standing in between where you were and where you're meant to be. You sense movement coming even before anything changes physically. This restlessness can show up as feeling out of place in your usual routine or suddenly wanting more meaning in your days. You may notice that old distractions no longer satisfy you. Conversations, habits, or environments that once felt fine now feel shallow. Your soul begins craving depth, purpose, and direction because spiritually, you're stepping out of an old chapter. This inner stirring isn't a sign that something is wrong. It's a sign that you're preparing to rise. God often uses this restlessness to shift your focus and awaken your desire for growth. It keeps you from settling and pushes you to pay attention to what your spirit is trying to tell you. When you experience this, it means a new season is forming around you. The restlessness is simply your inner world adjusting to the change before your outer world catches up. It's a reminder that you're being guided toward a higher purpose and the transition is already underway. When an old cycle is ending, God often plants new thoughts, desires, or inspirations in your heart, ideas you didn't plan, expect, or even understand at first. These sparks come naturally, without effort, and they carry a feeling of purpose. It's as if your spirit is being prepared for something bigger, even if the full picture isn't clear yet. You might notice this when a new passion suddenly interests you, or when a direction you never considered starts pulling your attention. You may feel a growing urge to try something different, start a new chapter, or step into a role that feels more aligned with who you're becoming. These callings don't feel random, they feel meaningful, like they're nudging you toward your next level. This shift also shows up in the way you think. Old dreams lose their grip, and fresh ideas feel more energizing. You stop focusing on what used to motivate you and start paying attention to what brings you peace, inspiration, or a sense of growth. These inner whispers are God's way of getting you toward your future step by step. When new callings rise like this, don't ignore them. They are early signs of the path unfolding ahead of you, signs that your next season is already forming, waiting for you to step into it with courage and faith. As God closes an old cycle, you naturally begin craving moments of quiet, stillness, and personal space. It's not loneliness, it's a pull toward your own inner voice. You feel the need to disconnect from noise, distance yourself from unnecessary conversations, and reflect on where your life is heading. This shift happens because your spirit is processing change, even before your mind fully understands it. You might notice this during moments where social interactions feel heavier than usual, or when you choose solitude over distractions that once entertained you. You may also find yourself thinking more deeply about your choices, your relationships, and the direction of your future. This reflective state helps you gain clarity without forcing it, and it allows God to speak to your heart without interruption. During this phase, you begin to value peace over stimulation. You choose silence over chaos because it's easier to hear your intuition when everything else slows down. This isn't withdrawal, it's preparation. God often separates you from noise when He wants to realign your focus or strengthen your spirit for what comes next. When you feel drawn to spend more time alone, it's a sign that your next chapter requires a clearer mind and a centered heart. It means you're being prepared internally before the external shift begins to unfold. As God closes an old cycle, you may notice certain people from your past reappearing, not to stay, but to finish unfinished emotional business. These encounters aren't coincidences. They often serve as the final step of release, allowing you to heal parts of yourself that were still tied to old memories, unresolved feelings, or unanswered questions. This can happen in different ways. Someone you haven't spoken to in years may message you out of nowhere. A person who once hurt you might suddenly apologize. Or you might run into someone who played a significant role in an old chapter of your life. These moments aren't meant to pull you back. They're meant to help you recognize how much you've grown. You may also feel emotionally detached during these interactions, which is itself a sign of healing. Instead of reacting with the emotions you once carried, you respond with calmness and clarity. This shows that you're no longer tied to the version of yourself that lived in that old season. These brief returns serve a purpose: closure, understanding, and release. They help you walk into your next chapter without lingering attachments. When people from your past reappear in this way, it's a sign that God is clearing the final loose ends so your spirit can move forward freely and confidently. When God is ending an old cycle, you'll notice that some doors shut suddenly, quicker than you were prepared for. A plan you relied on may fall apart without warning. A commitment you thought would last may stop moving forward. Something you expected to continue smoothly may come to an abrupt stop. Even though it feels unexpected, this is often divine timing at work. These closures can feel uncomfortable at first. You may wonder why something you were building didn't last. But as time passes, you begin to see the hidden protection behind these endings. God doesn't let a door close unless staying behind it would delay your growth, drain your energy, or block the blessings meant for your next season. You'll also realize that when these doors shut, they don't leave confusion, they leave clarity. You may feel relief rather than resistance. A weight lifts off your shoulders. You sense that forcing the situation would only bring frustration. This is confirmation that the closure was necessary. When doors close quickly, it's God making sure you don't stay in places that can't support the future He's preparing for you. These fast endings are not interruptions. They are redirections, getting you towards something more aligned with your purpose. As an old cycle closes, you may notice a new kind of confidence rising within you, not loud, not arrogant, but steady and grounded. It feels like a calm assurance that you can handle what's ahead, even if you don't have all the answers. This confidence doesn't come from external success. It comes from spiritual alignment and inner maturity. You start trusting yourself more. You trust your decisions, your intuition, your growth, and the path God is guiding you toward. You no longer feel the need to overthink every step or doubt your ability to move forward. Instead, you feel anchored, as if something inside you is saying, "You're ready." This confidence often appears after you've let go of what no longer serves you. When the weight of old cycles lifts, your clarity sharpens and your strength increases. You begin to respond to challenges differently, with wisdom instead of fear, patience instead of panic, and resilience instead of resistance. This inner confidence is a sign of transformation. It means you're no longer driven by insecurity or uncertainty. You're stepping into a version of yourself that knows its worth and understands its purpose. When this calm assurance rises within you, it's God preparing you for the opportunities and responsibilities waiting in your next season. When God is closing an old cycle, you often begin to notice repeated signs around you, subtle messages that confirm you're moving in the right direction. This can show up as repeating numbers like 111, 222, or 555, meaningful words you keep hearing, recurring symbols, or perfectly timed moments that feel too aligned to be random. These synchronicities aren't coincidences, they're small spiritual nudges. You might see the same message from different places, a phrase in a video, a line in a conversation, or a thought that echoes in your mind. You may also notice moments of perfect timing, where something aligns exactly when you need reassurance or clarity. These signs are meant to comfort you, guide you, and confirm that you're not walking through this transition alone. These synchronicities often become stronger when you're close to entering a new chapter. God uses them to sharpen your awareness and encourage your faith. They help you trust the direction your life is moving, especially when the path ahead isn't fully visible yet. When these signs begin showing up consistently, it means your spirit is aligned, your steps are guided, and your transition is being supported from above. It's a reminder that every shift happening around you has purpose, and every sign is leading you toward exactly where you're meant to go. One of the final signs that God is closing an old cycle is the quiet readiness growing inside you, a sense that you're mentally, emotionally, and spiritually prepared for the next step, even if your external circumstances still look messy or uncertain. It's the feeling that something new is near, and you're no longer afraid of what comes with it. You may notice this when you catch yourself thinking differently about the future. Instead of feeling overwhelmed, you feel hopeful. Instead of resisting change, you're open to it. Your spirit feels lighter, your perspective shifts, and you begin to sense a fresh beginning forming on the horizon. This inner readiness isn't forced. It rises naturally as a sign that your growth has aligned with God's timing. Even if everything around you still looks the same, you know internally that you've outgrown the old chapter. You've gained wisdom, healed wounds, and released what once held you back. This inner strength prepares you to step into opportunities that would have intimidated you before. This readiness is God's confirmation. It means the transition is complete within you, and you're now aligned with the path He has been preparing all along. When you feel this shift, trust it. It's the final sign that the new season is already unfolding, and you are fully equipped to walk into it with confidence, courage, and clarity. As we reach the end of this message, remember this: if you're feeling these shifts, it's not by accident. God is closing an old cycle because you're finally ready for what comes next. You've grown, you've healed, and you've reached a point where the version of you that once struggled no longer defines the path ahead. A new chapter is forming, and you are stepping into it stronger, wiser, and more aligned than ever before. Here at Cosmic Shift, I want you to leave this video knowing that change is not something to fear, it's a sign of elevation. Every ending you've faced this season has been clearing space for brighter beginnings. You are moving into a chapter where your peace is protected, your purpose is clearer, and your spirit is supported in ways you have never experienced before. If this message spoke to your heart, let me know in the comments. Tell me which sign connected with you the most, or what shift you feel happening right now. And before you go, comment this affirmation to seal your new season. I am ready for the chapter God is opening for me. Claim it, believe it, and walk forward with confidence, because your next season is already on its way.